All right, so welcome back to the Cognition School Podcast. My name is Satoshi Takano. I'm really, trying to help all you guys, whether you're a parent or a hockey player, understand, some of the landscapes of hockey and some of the tools that are available and some of the great coaches that are out there in the marketplace. So today we have a very, very special guest, my very good friend Danny Heath from Project Hockey, and he's developed a really great platform that brings elite training to hockey players from to all over the world. He's got a background in playing NCAA Division I hockey, so we'll talk a little bit about that, and a passion for making high-level development more accessible through the app. So I really have it's a great opportunity to welcome Danny. So welcome to the podcast, Danny.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've been hoping to get on this, so excited to be here, and hopefully we can make some people better in the meantime and spread the word. So I appreciate you having me
Absolutely.
on.
Absolutely. And I've had an opportunity to take a look at the app, and I think it's fantastic. So tell us a little bit about that, because obviously for those that are not familiar, we definitely want to give you guys a taste of what Danny's created here.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of got to the point where, like, if you scroll through Instagram for a minute, you're gonna watch all the cool highlights, all the dangles and Michigan attempts or Michigan whatever, this or that. And I think those are really cool, but for the 99% of us that can't do that and can't execute that in a game, there needs to be kind of a different way to train the brain, because the hard fact is not every kid's going to be Connor McDavid, because there's only one Connor McDavid, right? And then if you keep on scrolling on Instagram, you're going to end up getting on different social media that you probably don't want your 14, 15-year-old kid to be on. So what we did was we flipped the script and created a safe environment for players to not only train their brain, but train their skills as well. And I always put it into terms like it's a skills coach in your pocket where you can pull it out, and there's daily hockey IQ lessons in there for you to develop your on ice decision making, daily stick handling stuff. There's some mindset things. There's everything that you could want to help you be better at hockey. Does it replace your on ice stuff? I say no, because if it did, that means you probably got to find another coach on the ice. But it does add a lot of value to your decision making. And inside the app, we watch more than the highlights. We break down shift after shift after shift in a row. And so you can really start to paint the story of what hockey is. And, you watch a guy on one shift and he might have 2 turnovers, and then the next shift he's got another turnover, and then he kind of lets it snowball. And that's very important to learn that versus, the Kyle Connor in the Winnipeg game. He had a kind of a rough start, and then he flipped it around and ended up winning that game for him. And so telling that story is something we do every single day inside the Hockey IQ app, and it's helping a lot of players get better.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. And I think the stuff that you do in terms of breaking things down and avoiding highlights, right? Like, I think that's important for a lot of our players, because obviously, everybody wants to be the Connor McDavid, do like all those tight turns and everything that Connor does,
Yeah.
and that's great. But I think what I'm always focused on, especially when I was training my son as well over the years, is that what does he need to do when he doesn't have the puck? So, which is,
Absolutely.
and I remember, and this is long before anyone even started talking about the 98%, which is like I literally just timed him of when he has the puck versus how long he's on. And then I said, wait
Right.
a minute, like, why, as a parent, why am I putting all this money into just the 2% of the game, which is when he has the puck? And so all the cone drills and stuff, I'm not saying it's bad. I think I
Right.
was over rotating on that side and just focusing on puck control and what does he do when he has the puck. And I'm like, wait a minute, he doesn't have the puck for most of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of and that's why we pick a player, and we do forwards, defensemen, centers, wingers. We do all different types of players, PWHL and NHL, and we just follow them around for, I usually at least do 7 shifts, because then you can kind of tell that story. But sometimes we'll do a whole period of shifts, and we just got done with Matt Boldy, and he ended up scoring 2 goals in that period, which was just by chance. But the other 10 shifts that he had, he was supporting the puck. He was playing above the puck, and it's hard to tell a kid, like, hey, come out and do a private lesson with me. You're going to learn how to play away from the puck. So I'm going to have you just stand above me the whole time and support me, right? People see that as a waste of ice. And so that's why, thankfully, there's programs like yourself and like Project Hockey that you're able to pull out your phone or go to your brick and mortar place and have those conversations and learn these things and react and do all these things and not have to be on the ice to do it. And you can get a lot better at the game of hockey away from the rink. It just, it takes time and it takes consistency. It's not like a magic pill. Here's your cool hockey IQ highlight of Connor McDavid. It's a let's watch Anze Kopitar 15 shifts in a row and see what he does and why he's played in the NHL for so long. And it's, like I said, it's helped a lot of players. And, we're getting to the point now where people are like, can you do this player? Can you do that player? Can you do this player? And it's been a really cool project. And, yeah, it's helping a lot of kids develop.
Yeah, and just history of the app itself. Like, when did you start kind of thinking about it and actually developing it? How long did it take for you to get to where it is now?
Yeah, so we started probably 2 years before COVID, and it was going well. And it just started because kids, the number one question I get asked by parents is like, what can my kid do to get better at home? And so I would record me stick handling video and drills and send it to these parents, and they would ask for more. And so then I created a Google Sheet, and I shared that sheet, and I just re-uploaded it every week of new content. And I would wake up and it'd have 10 more kids requesting access to it. I would share it to them, and it went on and on. Then I had associations like, hey, we want this for our association. We ended up piecing together what is now, it's an app, Project Hockey, in the app stores. And COVID hits and we got massive, right? At one point, the Ottawa 67s were doing our program every single day and putting the work in. And we were partnered with a lot of different people helping kids get better. And with how low cost our app is, it really allows players to access it no matter what their resources are. And you don't need any fancy equipment to do it. You just need your space and a stick and a puck or a ball, and you're able to do our program. And people latched onto that. And then as COVID went away, thankfully, people started going back to rinks, and we just kept getting requests. We would put in there a couple Hockey IQ video breakdowns, and same kind of story. People are like, we want more, we want more. And so we eventually just created our whole app based on Hockey IQ and Hockey IQ development, and allowing players to just pull up their phone, play the Hockey IQ game, or jump in a discussion. Or, I mean, each kid has their own profile, and it's really grown to something that I never thought it would. But it's pretty cool when you look at when I wake up at, early in the morning, and we've got 10 kids that have already done it because they live over in England, and they already did the program for the day. And so it's exciting, and it's definitely helping a lot of players. I know I've said that a bunch, but that's what we're all about at Project Hockey. So it's good.
Yeah, definitely. That's great because I think the one thing that I've seen with a lot of hockey players that may have played at a high level and they no longer play, they kind of are missing that element of, okay, how do I use technology and then turn it into a business? And I think you've done that extremely well to be able to understand what technologies are out there, what players are consuming content today, and then aligning it with the stuff that you've got and turn that into a business. So I think that's fantastic with what you've done.
Yeah, thank you. It's been fun, and now we're getting to the point where we're starting to team up with some people and just trying to, I always say, keep the main thing, and that's Hockey IQ development, and making sure that when stuff gets put into the app, that even if it's a little tiny piece of information, the kid can learn from it, and they can. Like in our app, you can't just scroll to the next one. You got to answer questions about the videos, and you got to engage. And we even have Hockey IQ quizzes in there for them that they can't just skip through. And the kids that are consistent with it, they're starting to see big time development. So it's good that way. And yeah, the business side of it, it's, when you're done with hockey, you lose that competition and you miss that competition. And for me, that's what business is how can you build the biggest business that's going to help as many people as you can, and that's kind of what we're after. So
yeah, relative to some of the content, because I definitely want to get into the content. So, are there specific themes that you're kind of looking at to teach, or do you just look at players? Because I know I've seen both sides really, but
yeah.
How do you kind of come up with some of the content?
We, knowing that it's 2025 and you got to get these kids engaged, we try to, right now we're cycling through players that are relevant in the NHL. And that's why we did Matt Boldy this week, because sadly, I think my Wild are only going to have 4 games left. Maybe one more in there. Can't watch them because they start at midnight, but that's okay. But we try to, there's a lot of themes. And as you watch more hockey, and that's a big piece of it, is if you're watching hockey the right way, you're going to pick up themes, and you're going to pick up almost like predictions out on the ice. It's that old story of Wayne Gretzky, how he would draw on the piece of paper and follow around the puck and start to see, okay, if the puck's here, no one's usually over here. That's where I'm going to go. And you start to see that, especially if, I'll just keep using Matt Boldy. We did Tom Wilson the week before, and you start to see okay, every time the puck's in the corner, look where they're positioned. And the one time Boldy wasn't positioned up on his point in the D zone, they ended up giving up a big scoring opportunity. And so you start, and then you can talk about that, and not every player is perfect. And we did a whole week of Kent Johnson, and it was awesome because Kent Johnson actually reached out, and he's like, hey, I want to see these videos. And so I sent him all the shifts, and he he's a big hockey IQ nerd, and he watches all his shifts. He's plays for Columbus. And so we try to find little nuggets that we can get out of each player, but you'll see that these players, not including like the McKinnons, and we've done McKinnon, we've done McCarr, we've done McDavid, and they obviously do a lot of right things, but those never get talked about. So if we can show Kent Johnson doing it and connect it to Nathan McKinnon, then all of a sudden kids are like, okay, that makes sense to me. Like that's how I'm going to get better. We do a lot of, it's been pretty cool now, like on our social media channels, we just film, I've been going to a lot of wild games and clipping individual guys, just kind of following them around. Now you can't see the whole ice. So if you want the whole ice breakdowns, jump in the app, but you can see just their tendencies and where they sit. And we try to just make sure that when a kid, when one of my son or daughter come home from practice, I'm like, what's something you worked on? And 9 times out of 10, they can't answer that. They're like, I don't know, we did stations. And so when you leave the app, or even when you're on the ice with me and mom or dad or parent, guardian, whoever takes care of you in that car ride home, and they're like, what did you learn about today? What did you work on? They need to have an answer. We worked on keeping our eyes up. We worked on whatever it is that day, but they need to have an exact answer. And that's what we do with every video and every breakdown. When you're done with it, you've got a takeaway that is going to make you a better hockey player.
Yeah, I love the fact that you follow a player, because I think too often, even if you're watching games, right? Like we could tell kids to watch games and all they watch is kind of following the puck.
Yeah.
And when you actually start to watch one player and just watch exactly where he goes, forget about the puck for a second, because you're obviously, hopefully you're seeing that in your peripherals, right? But when you're kind of following through, you see the game completely differently. And I think people fail to realize that. Even you could be at the game, and obviously I've watched a ton of games live, but it's, you just see the game completely different. You're like, oh, this is happening over here, so probably the puck is going to end up over here. Oh, puck is over here. This guy's kind of, circling behind the net, or kind of get into that scoring position. And I think it's, people kind of miss that part of the game.
For sure. And like, I always relate it to like a car. Like you see they're basically driving a car on the ice. And if you don't keep your window facing where the puck is, you don't see it. You get into car accidents, or if you bobble the puck, you got to look down at the puck, and now you're running into people. And you can see like the preparation that these players do before the puck even gets to their area, of like scanning, and call it inventory. Like take inventory. How many guys in front of you are wearing away color jerseys? Okay, there's 5. That means you're either out of position or you're in a really good position. And so you got to be able to like navigate that. And I can't believe the amount, like I'm a smarter hockey player now than back when I was actually playing, because all I do is like I watch. And I played in a men's league tournament like a couple of weeks ago, and the game was so much easier for me because I was able to like, I don't need to go chase this down right here. I'm going to stay right here, and this puck's going to come up, and I'm going to stick lift this defenseman, and boom, it's going to be a breakout pass. And all I had to do was stick lift. And so it's like, it's been great for me and my development. And that even translate when I'm doing drills on the ice, like it needs to connect to something. And that's why a lot of guys and girls that I work with, they're in the app doing the IQ work. Cause then when I bring something up on the ice, like, oh yeah, we talked about that in the app yesterday. I'm like, we did. And that's why we're doing it today. And so it's like, I don't have to spend time telling them why they need to be here, because they're learning about that every single day inside the app. And it's like you said, if kids could just watch one player for a shift, then pick another player for a shift, and watch as many as you can. Because the age range we work with is like, I'd say 9 to 17 years old, and they need to be watching as many positions as possible and learning the game. And especially kids, if they're at home watching it, they get on their phones and they're kind of distracted. That's why, like I said, we keep the main thing the main thing.
Yeah, you mentioned the age range. So is that kind of like the time at which you recommend people to jump in on the app, at around 8 or 9?
Yeah, I would say that sweet spot. It takes a very special 8-9-year-old to like commit to doing it every single day, because that's where I think you see the most development. It's probably 20 to 30-minute lessons. Like we're not sitting down for 3 hours doing hockey IQ. It's just those daily doses is what seems to be very helpful. But yeah, I'd say that 8 to 9 is when they start to jump in, and then the meat and potatoes of our program is like that 12 to 14-year-old player that's really just trying to figure things out and learn the game. And too many times youth hockey coaches say, oh, they don't have it. They just can't think the game. They can't do this. And there's no time spent doing that. You just do more cone drills. And it's like, now you get in the game and they turn the puck over because now they have pressure and they don't just have a cone to skate around. So how can we minimize those turnovers and help kids better. And I think we found a pretty good way.
Yeah, no, I think that's great because kids definitely need to understand that, hey, like, cameras up here, right? Like, and this is the one challenge that I had when I was training my son, which is cameras up here. It's got the bird's eye view, but then from a player perspective, they just see bodies coming at them from left and right. They don't see it in like those geometric shapes that we talk about
Right.
often as coaches. But I think through that repetition of being able to kind of see things the way it is and then reviewing it right away to go, okay, like this is what was happening. This is why these bodies kind of, one guy looks further away and the other guy's a little bit closer. And so from our perspective, what we do here, like we essentially take the stuff that you have, for example, from the bird's eye view, and then we'll simulate that here on the floor. So we can do this thousands of times in a controlled environment where you're not wasting time and money on renting ice. And that's the one thing that I've ran into as a parent, which is trying to drop all this money on renting ice only to talk about more IQ related stuff, which is you want to be here, you want to be slower here, you want to be doing heel pushes here, but it doesn't look sexy, right? It doesn't. There's no puck involved, and I think that's the biggest challenge that a lot of parents have is I'm paying money to a coach and I expect my son or daughter to work on puck skills and that's it. And then they realize, wait a minute, maybe, all the stuff that they're doing right now doesn't show up in the game. And they keep thinking, okay, why doesn't it show up in the game? And they will put them on to more power skating, thinking it's got to be the skating, or maybe I need to do just shooting because they're not shooting enough. Well, it's like, well, you're not putting your kid in a position where he or she can get that puck, right?
Yeah. And I just had the same conversation with a few of these players that I just started with a few months ago. And, we did a few lessons and like, my kid needs help skating and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, look at the NHL. Like how many players skate the exact same way? How many players stick handle the exact same way? How many players, it doesn't happen that way. Right. And now there's obviously like a basic foundation to skating and all that stuff that needs to be taught and understood. But the biggest separator, like I've had some people, I'm like, no, you don't need these lessons. Ice is way more expensive. Do this IQ work. Like this is what you need to be working on, because if you can make decisions, you're going to beat that guy to the puck. Or if you can make the decision with the puck, you're going to get around her. And so it's something that, we've really been focusing on. Like I said, it's not the sexy work. Like nobody wants to just sit there and watch clips of pucks being rimmed around and picking it up. And where should you be if they're below the dot versus above the dot? They don't want to work on that, but that's what's going to make them a better hockey player. And like you said, it's not the sexy stuff, but it's the stuff that works. And you guys do a fantastic job of it. I just wish we had one closer to Minnesota is all.
Trying to get there, man.
So, yeah, we'll get there.
We'll get there for sure. Is there any kind of misunderstanding about hockey IQ that kind of prevents their players from jumping into an app like yours? Like, is there anything that, from a clarity point of view, if parents understood it a little bit more?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like kids will watch a highlight of Makar and they think that's hockey IQ. Like, no, that's a really, really good hockey player doing something that we can't do. And like, that's just being honest, right? And will there be another Makar? Probably down the road, and maybe more if we can keep developing. But I think the biggest misconception is like when a kid gets into our program or an athlete gets into our program, it's the daily consistent work that's really driving development. Like you said, like in your program, you're doing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of reps. So it becomes something that's almost second nature. And a lot of people argue like you either got it or you don't with hockey IQ. I disagree with that to a point. I do think some people are probably more gifted with it. Like some people can just think quicker, right? Some people can understand the game better, but there's always those stories about the players that weren't very good when they were younger and they start to develop. And like even the Michael Jordan stuff, like got cut from his first high school basketball team and then started to develop later on in life. And so with our program, I think the biggest misconception is like, it's not a get rich quick scheme. It's not a magic pill. It's, hey, come in here, do the work. We even give them homework to do where it's like, hey, go watch tonight's Tampa Bay, Florida game. And I want you to see what kind of neutral zone and what kind of offensive forecheck that Tampa is running. And let me know if it changes from period to period. And why do you think it changes? And so like, the guys on Tampa, they probably just understand it like, hey, we're up a goal. We're gonna sit back and do a 1-3, right? In the neutral zone where it's like, hey, we're down a goal. We're gonna go aggressive. But to a 12-year-old and a 13-year-old, like learning that stuff and understanding, not just like how they do it, why they do it is big. And so that's the biggest thing with our program is like, you're going to lead with the why, and then you have to answer why they do it. So you can't just watch and move on. It's like, okay, why did Kopitar? And I use Kopitar a lot because that guy's a genius on the ice. And so watching him and like why he does the things he does is something that every kid should be watching, regardless of if you're a D or a forward. And that's a big question we get. Like, well, my son plays D. It's like, okay, well, one, we do a lot of D. We just did Victor Hedman, who's very smart, especially for how big he is. And doesn't matter because when you're watching a forward, they're playing against D. And so we kind of tried to do our best to break down both at the same time. But I think the biggest bang for your buck is like you said, just following around one player and kind of watching it from that side. So that'd be the biggest thing. I'm rambling on this question a little bit, but it's because I love talking hockey, and it's a huge passion. So it's been fun.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense to me as well, because like you said right at the get-go, like there's just way too many highlights, and
Yeah.
in 30 seconds people think they're getting educated. It's like, no, right? Like,
Yeah.
and then there's a lot of there's a lot of ego in this business, and so
Yeah.
you hear coaches that will say, oh no, that doesn't work, and just stick to my skills and it'll be fine. But I know, because I train my own kid, right? Where it's
Right.
I mean, we had to rent ice for, I don't know, $125 an hour. Now it's not even that, right? Like it's now up to $300 an hour. And
Yeah.
a couple of weeks ago, I actually did the math on how much a drill costs based on instruction, as well as your ice time and setup and tear down, and the time that the kid is actually executing that drill. And I remember I did the math. There was one drill that cost me $218.
That'd be interesting to dive into that with you, because that's a big deal. Like, compared to what they get at your facility, that's a huge thing. And compared to what they would get in our app, like you can, yeah, I just did a couple. That's a big deal, breaking it down, especially in that it's like, how much did they get per rep? It's interesting for sure. That's a good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. So, and again, like, I mean, I remember talking about that post where, people are just scrolling for ideas, and
Yeah.
coaches do this too all the time. I know for a fact that coaches will scroll Instagram posts looking for drill ideas. And I'm
Yeah.
like, why are you wasting your time? Right? Like,
Hmm.
just pay the $25 a month, or, the $50 a month, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Just get all that in one spot where you can go. And I think that people miss out on those opportunities, and then they just waste a ton of time on. So yeah, no, I think what you've done is fantastic. I think we need more of what you've done in the marketplace, because parents are lost, and they don't know what to do, how to navigate it, who are the best coaches. I get that question every day here. Who would you recommend for so and so? Who would you recommend for this? Who would you recommend for that? And I think we're kind of becoming that hub now, where people are coming to us for information, because number one, we've got a really great network with people like yourselves. Number two, I'm not a coach. Like, I don't coach a team by design.
Right.
So I'm completely neutral to what
Yeah.
everything is out there. And you and I both know, like, there's coaches out there that'll be like, hey, if you train with me, you'll play for my team. And I'm like, that makes no
Yeah.
sense, right? Now there's conflict of interest. And
Yeah.
so with what you're doing and what we're doing here, it's like, no, we're completely neutral to everybody. We just want to help, right?
Yep. Yeah, 100%. And that's a big question I get, is like, hey, what should we be doing for skating? I'm like, well, it's not like an a la carte thing. Like, you can't be like, I want to do skating, stick handling. Like, you need to find what works for you, but then it's like, you don't just be in a hurry to be horrible. I always say, like, you gotta like figure out people that you trust. And yeah, those are all good points. And it's been through my family and I, we moved from Mankato, a very small town. Now we're up in basically St. Paul. We live in Lakeville. And just like the vast majority of players, and you're getting 1,000 different questions, and what's good, what's not. And it's crazy. Some of these players, like, they're doing power skating with like 3 different power skating instructors, because this one's really good at tight turns and this one's really good at edge work. And it's like, okay, let's dial it down. And if you can't, like, I always go back to, if you can't think the game, and I do think skating is important. I'm not saying it's not, but if you get the puck and you don't know what to do with it, it's going to make it tough for you to advance careers. Just thinking the game is something that, I think we talked about it, where like 20 years ago, people are like, oh, we got to start working out to get in better shape to be better hockey players. And then 10 years ago, it's like, hey, we better start eating right so we can fuel our body and be better hockey players. And now it's getting to the point, and it should have been backwards, but now it's getting to the point where it's like our brains, we need to start training our brains and thinking better and making quicker decisions, because it's going to make us a better hockey player. And so it should have been the opposite way, but now that it's coming around and people are starting to understand that you can get a lot better by watching and learning and go into hockey too. Like I go to a lot of NHL games now to learn, and you look around and 1 out of every 5 people are actually watching the game, where the other, they're either drinking whatever, eating whatever, or on their phone. And it's like, I don't know. I'd want to see the kids, the young hockey players watching hockey, because there's so much good hockey, and doesn't matter if they are the Connor McDavid superstar. That guy's doing a lot of things that you could do and a lot of things that I could do. And he just does it really, really well. And he does them so easily because he thinks the game that way, right? So how can we get more players to understand that is the ultimate goal.
Yeah. When I used to play, I hated those guys that were not as fast, but they're always at the right place at the right time. Like I hated those guys. And it just made my job even more difficult. I was a defenseman. So yeah, it was so frustrating playing against guys like that. And the other thing that that I wanted to kind of bring up too, like obviously, like you're recording like the isolated shots right on your phone.
Yeah.
And I do that too all the time.
Yeah.
And it feels weird. Like you get these people watching you going like, why are you recording this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I tend to just kind of stay in the far back and pull my phone out and record everything. And I've got a terabyte of storage on my phone for that purpose, right? To be able to record all that. You kind of get those looks every now and then when you're at games too?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I get the looks all the time. And now it's gotten to the point where I'm asking people that are going to games, I'm like, hey, can you film this guy? Can you film this girl? And it's I try to get the upper deck first row, so no one's in front of me and I can kind of sit back, and I try not to bother anyone. But yeah, a lot of people are like, hey, what are you doing there? And you try to explain it, but then you miss half the game, and it's like I'll talk to you later. I'm just trying to zone in. I'm just trying to get better. So it's awkward, I guess, at times, but I'm very good at uncomfortable situations. And and same as you, like I had a player in college that I played with. His name's Matt Leitner. And if you asked him, like he's probably the slowest player to ever play at Minnesota State University, but he was the very first team All-American in school history. And we had David Backus, like Teddy Bluger, like we had all these guys play there. And he was the first team All-American in school history because he was not only always in the right place, but then he would like put other guys in the right place. Or his hockey IQ was elite. And still is elite. He's coaching and doing all that stuff. But he, same as you, like everyone be like, man, this guy, like he's your best player. It's like, I mean, you look at him and you're like, you wouldn't think it, but then watch him go play a shift and he just had it, right? And I think now we can get to the point where we can start learning those things, especially if they start thinking that way. And not just like training that way, but understanding that they can develop their brain along with their skating and shooting and stick handling from the ages of 9, 10, 11. So it's good.
Yeah. What do you recommend for kids that are, let's say they're doing the Hockey IQ app? How do they transfer that to their on ice session?
Yeah, so I like a lot of times in the app, like I'll pause the video and I'll tell them like, hey, so the next time you're doing, because we've all done like the 4 dot drills where it's like pass, get it back, shoot, right? And too many times you see kids doing that and they're just looking either straight down or they're looking at the net the whole time. Where when you watch like the Patrick Kanes or the Larkins, like when they enter zones, they're not looking straight ahead. They're looking to the side, or they're looking to where the high scoring chances areas are. And so I'll say like, hey, watch Larkin enter the zone here. The next time you're doing any drill, even if it's a warm-up drill, get your head to the middle and start to scan and think like, okay, and I always kind of teach them like in football, like the quarterback doesn't drop back and you can't look at all 3 options at once, right? You look at your Justin Jefferson, your number 1 target first, and then you scan out. Same thing in hockey. Like if you're entering the zone, take a peek at the net, right? That's your top priority. Like if someone's back door, you better hit them and then work your way out like a quarterback would do and do that in your drills. And so we do a lot of that in the app, and it kind of naturally takes care of itself on how to transfer it. But now it's getting to the point where kids will say, hey, I just did this in my practice. Like, can you find a clip of it and put it in? I'm like, yeah, we can. That happens all the time. And so that kind of stuff. And we have a lot of teams that use the app. So like you said, Ice Time is a I did a camp in San Diego. I do a camp in San Diego every year, and it's $650 an hour per ice.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? And so with that stuff getting more expensive, the team might practice on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And so the coach has them on Tuesday. They're watching everything in the app. And then Wednesday, they meet before practice and they talk about it. And then they use something that was in the app into a drill that day. And so teams are building off of it. We just signed up a couple of associations for next year where when associations sign up, every coach gets a free account. So every kid has their own profile, right? Like I can add you as a friend in there. And then I can see everything you're doing. So the coaches can see what their players are doing. So if little Timmy didn't do their hockey IQ, then you can have a conversation about it. Or if little Timmy did do his hockey IQ, you can congratulate and kind of pump them up and have them lead something the next day. And so a lot of teams are using it just to transfer it. So it's a lot of natural transitions. But, the biggest thing is like just the scanning and pre-scanning and like, don't just do a drill to do a drill, like have a better understanding of why you're doing it. And if you're just doing a breakout drill, well, why don't you scan prior and make sure you know where you're going? Even though coach is telling you to hit the wing, take a look before, see what their stick is. And like I always tell my kids, like, I want you to think in your head, is he a righty or a lefty? So before you touch the puck, if you know who you're passing to, you should know if they're a righty or lefty by looking and going that way. And so little things like that, we always talk about in the app, and it seems to transfer pretty naturally.
Yeah, that's really great. That's really great. I always talk about that as well, where you should be kind of in that optimal position. If the player that's giving you the puck is a righty, where should you be relative to that? Or maybe he's a lefty, so that kind of helps them understand where to position themselves to be able to get the puck, right? So too often I find that they get into a position where maybe he's a right-handed shot, but then they go maybe too far out in front, but there's somebody kind of in between you and the other passer as well. So
right.
Instead of maybe getting a little bit further ahead, so then it's making it easy for that passer to give it to you. I find that those are like the small details, but is commonly missed because they just think, oh, body's a body, right? That they should just be able to get it to regardless. Yeah, and definitely I like what you mentioned about using it in those 4-dot drills, right? Like, and actually being able to scan and look around before you even touch the puck. And so I think for the coaches that are out there, you'll probably be able to pick out the kids that are doing the app versus the ones that are not doing the app because they're the ones doing all the scanning, right? So yeah,
and they're the ones that are like having just more meaningful conversations about hockey. And like it's like I was fortunate enough to be coached by JP Parisi a couple years before he passed away back in junior hockey, and like the way that guy would think the game was like just the elite level. Like we were messing around in the back of the line one time, and he like comes over yelling and screaming at us in his French Canadian accent, and we thought we were in trouble. And he's like, "What are you guys talking about?" We kind of had a conversation about the drill, and he's like, "Well, how does this compare to a game?" And then like he had these conversations, and like that guy was teaching hockey IQ before it was even a thing. And he would just do that every single drill. There'd be something. One kid would shoot a puck down the ice just out of nowhere, and he'd be screaming. He's like, no, you must try to hit another puck with the puck. And like there was always something to get better, right? And like he was an awesome influence on me, and like really like conversations and lines don't have to always be shut down by coaches. They need to be like grown and made better, because like you look at an NHL line, like that line, unless it's like a pregame blah blah blah, like that line is there for them to get better and to develop their hockey IQ. And I always tell my players, like, you want to develop your hockey IQ, like the line is the place to do it. It's not a place to kind of pick your boogers and look around. Like it's a time to focus and ask questions, or watch the guy grow in front of you, or have meaningful conversations about like, oh, did you see that zone entry? Did you see how they came up the wall? Did you see how they, got their elbow up to get a flatter lie on their stick? And like those conversations is what JP Parisi like tried to melt into us and grow, versus like a lot of times now, as soon as a kid starts talking in line, it's like, shut up and listen. And so I think we gotta cool it, and there are some kids out there that are, they're out there to and so it's, you gotta get that stuff taken care of. But then there's a whole opportunity for you to be like, hey, what are you talking about? Don't go in there yelling and screaming like, hey, what are we talking about? And they'd be like, oh, nothing. It's like, oh, well, it'd be awesome if you were talking about X, Y, and Z, because that's what's going to help you become a better hockey player. And so trying to foster those relationships is hard, but it's one day at a time, I suppose.
But that's important, right? Like back when I used to play, and I'm sure it's the same when you played as well. If you played on another team, you were my worst enemy. Just by wearing whatever the jacket was, I used to get into fights at the mall, right? Like
Yeah.
just because I hated you. But nowadays, everybody trains with everybody, and
Yeah.
so understanding, and communicating in that line, I think is important. Obviously, you don't want kids like shooting pucks at each other and, stuff like
Right.
that can happen. But I like what you said about, hey, like you want to be able to foster those types of communications and not scold them all the time just because, they're talking about something else. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, it happens in the NHL all the time. They always talk about, hey, did you watch this show last night or whatever?
Yeah.
They're just trying to, build camaraderie, and I think that's part of IQ too, right? That
Yeah.
people
100%.
sometimes overlook. Yeah, no, this has been fantastic. What's kind of like your breakdown of regions of users that are accessing the app, like whether worldwide? Like obviously you've got a worldwide audience, but where do you find most of your people coming from?
Yeah, I mean, most is from North America, but at one point we had like 13 different countries represented of players using the app pretty consistently. And, we've gone like all the way over to China, to England, to Canada, to Mexico, and kind of everywhere in between, right? And so we have a lot of that, but a lot of North Americans, a lot of Canadians, and then we're pretty big here in Minnesota, which is where I live. But yeah, we're kind of all over the place, and so we like it that way because kids have like created friendships in the app where they've they saw each other at a tournament, like you're in the app, like great to finally meet you type of thing. And so it's been awesome, and it's cool. Like if I'm ever traveling for hockey somewhere, like connecting with these players, and it's really cool to see all that.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think it's you're obviously contributing to making it a global game. So I applaud you for that. I think it's fantastic. Well, great. I think this is I mean, it's a great conversation. I definitely will look forward to continuing the conversation here. And where can people reach out to you and find out more about
Yeah, it's projecthockey.com, or on our socials is Project Hockey. My personal-ish account is Danny Hype. Don't ask why it's hype. It was a long time ago. I was an MC for like a CrossFit company, and I was the hype man. So
okay.
Then I got too deep into it and kept it. So it's got nothing to do with hockey, but I get called Danny Hype all the time. But it's on Instagram is kind of our big one, and Facebook and Twitter and all, our X and all that stuff. So it's just projecthockey.com.
Awesome. And we definitely want to give access to like all of our members as well, and hopefully they can jump onto the app as well.
For sure, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for coming on to the podcast, Danny. I know we've been in touch for a long time, and I look forward to continuing the conversation. But really appreciate your time today, and hope to have you back on the podcast. So thanks a lot.
Anytime. And I appreciate everything you're doing for the game and helping, as we always say, leave it better than we found it. So we're definitely on the right mission, and I appreciate everything. So thank you.
Awesome. Have a good day, everybody. Thanks so much.
Take care.